Champaign County Audubon is a local chapter of the National Audubon Society. I know the walks have been going since 1945, I think. I'm reasonably confident the group Champaign County Audubon Society was formed around then, if not that year as well.
So when I first moved to Champaign, I really wanted to get more involved in the community. We're just starting to get some friends here. I wanted to learn a little bit more about the flora, different places to go out and go hiking. And I had some skills when it came to social media and doing some graphic work and things like that. So I went to a Champaign County Audubon Society monthly meeting and found that they were looking for board members. So I went to a board meeting, and basically they needed a president to fill that role on the board. And so I agreed to become the president of the Champaign County Audubon Society.
I came to be involved in Champaign County Audubon Society first because Beth Chato picked me out on one of the walks and said, "Hey, you'd be a great bird walk leader."
I've always been really interested in the outdoors, and I grew up in the city of Buffalo, New York. But I used to spend all of my summers with my grandparents, and I used to call their home the woods because they had 20 acres of land, which had a lot of secondary growth forest on it. And I really loved exploring their house, their property, the woods, seeing all the different flowers and plants that grew there. But one of my favorite memories was they used to have this bird feeder attached right outside of their kitchen window. And they would have tons of chickadees and tufted titmice and all sorts of small kind of resident birds that I really got to know well when I was a kid. And I think just having them that close and being able to see them and learn their names really, really helped me foster a love for birds when I was younger.
I got interested in birds, I would say first because of the sound a wood thrush makes. I heard it on a walk at Allerton Park, absolutely fell in love with the sound, and I didn't know what it was, so I had to go find out what it was.
One of my favorite places to bird in Champaign County is the Sangamon River Forest Preserve, which is a Champaign County Forest Preserve District property. It's newer compared to a lot of the other preserves, but the reason I really like it is it has a great combination of both prairie and floodplain forest. So you also get the river flowing through the forest also. So you get a range of habitats, which usually means you get a range of plants, you get a range of birds. And it's really fun because not a lot of people visit, at least in comparison to some of the busier locations within town. So I feel like when I go there, I really get to be immersed a little bit. It's quiet, and I have had great birding there. I think one of my favorite days was seeing rusty blackbirds, and it was early in the year, I think maybe January or February, and it was a really cool experience.
Wherever my friends are, I want to go bird with them. That's most of the joy of birding for me is getting to bird with other people. I just love it. That's one of the reasons this is just really killing me, this social distancing. It's difficult to be with your friends. But when I'm alone and I want to go birding, I always go to Crystal Lake Park. One, don't worry about binoculars. Just get whatever you can afford. Borrow if you can, borrow your dad's old pair or something like that, or borrow some from a place like Champaign County Audubon. The bird guide is the next thing that people worry about too much, and genuinely, just get a Sibley guide or use Merlin on your phone. Merlin's free. If you have a phone that can use Merlin, just get Merlin and then worry about Sibley guide later.
My biggest tip for someone who is just getting into birding would be to be kind to yourself and to be patient, because I think a lot of people go out and they get frustrated that they are either not finding the birds that they went out to see, or they are hearing a lot of bird calls and they're just not figuring it out that quickly. But the truth is, it takes a really long time and a lot of practice to get good at birding. I think knowing places to go, knowing what to look for, what habitat types, and specifically identification can be challenging, especially when you don't know where to start. So I think my recommendation would be go out with other people if and when you can, or just look at it, bring a field guide and look at it intensely. Try to remember shape, size, color, dramatic markings on birds. That's going to be what really helps you identify those birds later. And when it comes to birding by ear, be patient. I've been birding seriously for 10 years maybe, and I still have a lot of trouble every spring when the warblers come back, because I always say I'm going to practice. And honestly, just until you hear and see them at the same time, it's hard to stick that in your memory. So just be patient and it'll come with time.
Get a feeder, and plant native plants. It's really important for birds to have cover. It's important for them to have food, both natural and supplied food. Like, it's not important that they have supplied food, but if you want birds to show up at your yard, it's very nice. That's a good way to get them to be there. Use nice, high quality bird seed. Like, it really does make a difference. Black sunflower seed, I think, is the standard that attracts a lot of birds.
If you want to attract birds to your backyard, the number one thing you can do is create habitat. So bringing wildlife and birds to your backyard really means that you need to create those food webs. So creating everywhere from the bottom to the top by creating habitat with native plants, creating healthy native plant communities. So buying things that provide nectar, pollen, and food sources for all sorts of different levels of the food chain. Those can be host plants for different insects. Those insects are going to create a robust community, and those insects are then going to feed the birds that you want to attract to your yard.
The biggest threat to birds today is the relaxation of federal standards for bird protections. The Migratory Bird Treaty Act is a great act. It's a great law, but it is actively being undermined by our representatives. Cats are unfortunate. They do kill a lot of birds, and they shouldn't be outside. But, and windmills kill a lot of birds, but not nearly as many as the relaxation of federal standards. You have to call your representatives. The single best thing that you can do is make sure that candidates that you're voting for are committed to supporting the environment.
The biggest threat facing birds is by far habitat destruction or loss of habitat. So these natural communities that these birds would typically occupy are being lost so rapidly. In Illinois, we have 1/10 of the percent of prairie that we used to have, which is important for grassland birds, but we also have a lot less forest than we used to have. We also have a lot less wetlands. So these are all really important things to think about when you're trying to figure out how to save birds, is how can we create more habitat and good habitat that actually is providing those necessary food webs that they need to survive. Of course, also collisions with buildings, light pollution, these are all things that complicate that long migratory journey for birds. And anything we can do to help them travel easier and survive throughout that journey is really going to help them reproduce and continue on as a successful species.
Favorite bird species changes depending on what bird is in front of me. I will say that I have a big soft spot for chestnut-sided warbler. They're okay in the spring, but I absolutely love their fall plumage. I can see it. I can see that bird, and I love it so much. I can see that fall plumage, quintessential chestnut-sided warbler in my head. I can close my eyes.
So I have so many favorite birding memories, but I would say that one of my favorites is all the times that I would go birding with my friends in Buffalo. We had a really great group of friends who are all really into birding and nature. And we would go out, especially for our birdathon, and just have a really great time together. And I do remember going to one of our favorite places on the escarpment of Niagara Escarpment of New York, and seeing my first cerulean warbler. And that was such a mind-blowing experience, because it's just one of those birds that you hear about all the time. Probably was a lot more common, and now is a bird that we don't typically see as often. And I remember that just being such a cool moment, and to share that with my friends on our birdathon was really incredible. So I would encourage you to go out, find some friends that you like birding with, and see some cool birds, make some new memories. It's really a wonderful experience.